Perfect. Welcome to the next installment of Innovations in Corporate Wellness. As the name suggests, in this series, we cover big trends, ideas, challenges, strategies that impact the wellness space. We have a YouTube channel. We also are going to start posting these on iTunes so that you can listen to them when you're driving around. Again, my name is Giri Adanki. I'm the founder of Mindful Meal. Think of Mindful Meal as Fitbit for nutrition. Our worship tool helps employees and their families prevent chronic diseases by empowering them to eat healthy at home. We work with corporations of all sizes, brokers, and also partner with other wellness providers. So it doesn't matter who you are in the benefits and wellness space. Today's topic impacts all of us. We'll be talking about effective strategies to communicate employee benefits with a very special guest, Allison DiPaoli. Allison is the CEO of DiPaoli Professional Services. She has a ton of experience helping employers and brokers design and execute benefit strategy. Allison, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you, Allison, talk a little bit about your firm, your background as well?
Sure. DiPaoli Professional Services started with a request from one of my clients to please expand what I can take care of for her. And so DiPaoli Professional Services was born. We provide online enrollment support, manual enrollment support. That can be providing a platform, an electronic platform. I've got a couple of choices for those. It can be supporting a manual or paper enrollment, providing enrollment, and helping support communication throughout the course of the plan year so that employees remain engaged with what their benefits are. Employers spend an awful lot of time and money investing in benefit plans, and that's all for naught if an employee doesn't understand what they have. So I've been in the benefits arena for about 20 years on the broker side and in the worksite benefits side as well. So I've got a pretty diverse set of experience.
That's great. Thanks for the background. And while actually we are talking about employee benefits, let's step back. Open enrollment is on everybody's minds. What are some of the, what are the top three challenges that we need to kind of keep in mind as we're thinking about launching next year's benefits?
Sure. I see three big trends. The first is data management. I think that's on top of everybody's mind lately. No matter what your business is, data management is the thing that keeps changing and is an ever-evolving process, and it's moving into the health insurance and benefits arena a little bit late, but it is sort of lighting that world on fire. Timing becomes more important when data needs to be managed electronically. So it impacts how decisions are made, when they're made, and when and how they're executed. Communication is an ever-evolving challenge. With sometimes 5 generations of employees in the workforce, how information is communicated and, more importantly, how it is received can be very complex. For example, the risk tolerance of the greatest generation and the millennial generation is remarkably similar, but how they want to be communicated with is remarkably different. And the last is employee satisfaction and retention. The race for talent is becoming more intense, and satisfaction with employee benefits drives a significant portion of job satisfaction, often over 40% of job satisfaction. If an employer offers an outstanding benefit package, but an employee doesn't know that or doesn't understand how to use it, then the work is useless and is frustrating for many people on many levels. So those are the three things that I see is happening now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's get into communications a little bit. I know when you think about communications, you are looking at it from about 3 dimensions, right?
Yes, and the needs often overlap, but they're not necessarily the same. I think everybody wants to do a good job for their staff and their employees. I know benefit brokers want to do a good job for their employers and their secondary clients, which are the employees of the employers. and it can be a lot to manage. I keep reading that a significant portion of employees are disengaged at work. Did you know that depending on age and income demographic, 48 to 60% of employees say their benefit options are extremely or very important to their work engagement, and that level increases to 59 to 67% for productivity. Yet consistently, the majority of employees spend less than 15 minutes researching their benefit options. Unsurprisingly, most say this is an inadequate amount of time, and over 50% of these people find the information available to be too complicated to understand. So that can be a real challenge.
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead. So yeah, as we're talking about, how do we overcome these challenges?
Well, there are a lot of ways, and some of them fall outside of the scope of our discussion today, but effective enrollment is one way to help drive understanding of and participation in the benefits offered. An effective strategy will include communications delivered over time and different media, as well as more traditional tools like group meetings, one-on-one enrollment, and benefit books. Employer intranets, even for smaller employers, text messaging programs, and surprisingly, mailed out material can all help drive engagement. Evergreen access to enrollment information, what is covered and how to use it is important and maybe the most important tool as well. I've seen a significant amount of pushback from all parties with regard to one-on-one benefit meetings, yet almost 2/3 of employees find this option to be helpful no matter how much they complain about it. And everybody complains about the one-on-one enrollment meetings. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for brokers. It's a lot of work and resource for employers, and it's time for employees. But it can drive a significant amount of understanding, participation in plan, and satisfaction with plan design. And one-on-one enrollments may not be necessary every year. That may be something that you do every couple of years. To me, the most important thing is to ensure that some form of communication is going on each year and that the communication matches the ebb and flow of what is happening with the benefit program. So if you've had a stable plan for a couple of years, you may do voluntary meetings and you may back that up with an active online enrollment where an employee needs to log in, confirm their benefit choices, and move on, or even an active paper process where an employee gets a list of what their benefits were last year and needs to either make changes or acknowledge that they want to continue with that. That's the simplest form, and if you're not making any changes, probably the most effective. If you're changing, then mandatory group meetings, active enrollment, either online or paper, and you may want to support that with a one-on-one enrollment, just to help make sure that everybody has access to all of the information.
So as we're talking about, looks like some of the channels to communicate, you talked about, mailing them, packages, obviously one-on-one enrollment. So with one-on-one engagement, do you see employers and HR staff using tools like a GoToMeeting or something like that, where you're able to do web chat conversations, or is it literally in person?
It can be either. What tends to be most effective is doing in-person meetings with the bulk of the employees if they're in one location, and then using GoToMeeting or webinars or Brainsharks to as leave behinds and to catch employees that are either on a shift that you can't catch or they're at a different location, and drive the participation to the online platform or returning whatever paper documents you need to in the most timely fashion.
Interesting. And then between direct mailing information versus tools like email or posting it on some kind of internal social network sites, what are your thoughts on those channels?
I see it's always most effective to use several tools in tandem. So intranets are great houses for plan descriptions, claim forms, contact information, a PDF copy of a benefit guide. Email can be used to remind people of open enrollment, that they have or have not completed their open enrollment, what their deadline is. If there's a wellness fair coming up, a lot of employers in San Antonio engage with a particular insurance carrier that has a great wellness program. They have some email type of tools, and those tools can often be managed outside of an HR staff. They can be managed by a carrier or an outside vendor. And then direct mail is helpful for reminding people to be walking and to watch their diet. If you've got somebody in the middle of a smoking cessation program, if people need to file their wellness benefits, if they need to go get their annual exam. And again, those tools can be used without a lot of effort on the part of an already stretched HR staff.
Well, that's interesting. Let's talk about stretched HR staff.
Well, particularly with employers that have, 200, 500, 800, 1,000 lives, sometimes even larger than that. The HR staff may be one person, or it may be one HR professional and a CFO and or controller. To add to the existing workflow can be a lot, and there's a lot of decision making and time that goes into open enrollment. So I'm always hesitant to add more things to that. A benefit broker can help with the customer service type of work that comes out of that, but the enrollment support often can't be managed by a broker. They don't have the manpower for it, and the manpower needs are usually time specific. So you may need 5 enrollers this week, 2 this week, and then you've got another case or another set of employees that need to be enrolled this week over here. That's a lot of staff for either an employer or an HR broker to manage. So using an outside vendor can help with that. We're also a neutral party, so sometimes privacy becomes an issue when an employee is talking with an employer about a particular concern. We can alleviate some of that.
Interesting.
So,
go ahead, sorry.
So, and one of the big things with the quantity of enrollments coming up is timing of decisions. A lot of enrollments happen with October 1, November 1, December 1, and January effective dates. So we're coming into a time when many things are happening. So I do work with a number of brokers, and the bulk of their book is renewing at this time. So an employer may be making decisions, but all of the decisions made by all of that particular insurance broker's clients are being made at the same time. So staffing is an incredible issue, and delivering of data is an incredible issue. An outside partner can help with that. And that, I do that. That's my occupation, but I'm not the only firm that does that. There are many firms that do that. Most specialize in the over 1,000 market and some in the under 1,000 market.
So let's talk a little bit more about staffing. How do you get help from outside firms? Are we talking about getting temporary help, and then also as you do that, what are some effective ways to get outside help in terms of training, getting them up to speed, scheduling times and stuff like that?
With my staff, I have a group of enrollers that I work with. I have a core group, and I have a group that's a bit expanded from the core group. We are all Group 1 certified. We all have E&O insurance. We all have experience in the insurance industry, some from a carrier side, some from the ancillary side, some from the work side, some even from the Medicare side, which can also lend an extra level of expertise. We can come in, we can explain, we can direct people with what they need to do, conduct the enrollment, and be off-site of an employer fairly quickly with as little disruption as possible. We can also help with the data delivery in terms of collecting data and then exporting it where it needs to go and making sure that everybody has what they need in the time they need it. Insurance brokers have lots of things on their plates, so anything that you can do to reduce that burden is helpful as well, and employers do also. Employee management is an ever-changing and ever-growing field, and staff is usually not growing.
And so let's talk a little bit about timing, right? When is it a good time to have these conversations about getting help and things like that?
As with most things, earlier is better. That is often not the reality. Fourth quarter open enrollments are coming up now, so now is a good time to talk over the course of the next few months. I've already had conversations with some of my clients who are just getting their renewal materials, looking at what claims are going on, what's happening to the rates, how to adjust a benefit strategy to serve the employer's need to control costs and an employee's need for benefits and not a huge out-of-pocket. And the earlier that you bring whatever partner you're using into that conversation, the more you can flesh out decisions. I worked with a broker last year to manage a significant medical increase down by about 20% by adjusting the plan and offering a worksite product to take care of the out-of-pocket. The end result was a significant amount of participation on the part of the employee at the employee's cost and a fair cost reduction to the employer. To do that a day before the enrollment is possible, but more challenging. When you have a little more time to think it through, you can expand the horizon of benefit choices.
Great. And then this is in regards both this dimension, the HR dimension, and the prior dimension, the employee dimension. So there's a lot of material that we talked about, emailing, direct mailing, having material there. So obviously there is a ton of material that needs to. There's written material, of course, but there's also a ton of material and scripts and stuff that need to go through, and just the copy of all that and making sure that it is succinct, it's not information overload. It's a little bit exciting to employees. How do you think through just getting all this material? Do you are there firms that help with copywriting, or what's the best way to think about this?
I like, again, a couple of pronged strategies. So if you're using an online enrollment, and online enrollment services are being delivered to smaller and smaller case sizes as years go on. It used to be a 50,000 life employer group, a 10,000 life employer group, even a 5,000 life employer group were the only groups using online platforms. With data management becoming so much more complex and so much more efficient, now that's dropping down into 500, 300, 200 life, 100 life cases. So you can provide a benefit book, which is sort of the gold standard, and that will have a fair amount of detail, all the contact information, and all of the required HR notices in it, or it can have all of the required HR notices in it. But then you want to do a quick meeting that just outlines the highlights and more than anything tells people how, not what, because how is the most important part. And let me give you a couple of examples. I have a client who has about 300 employees, and they have several different medical plans, and they have an employee with a very sick child, and the employee went in a couple of years ago on the most cost-effective plan from a premium perspective that had a significant out-of-pocket expense. At open enrollment, he was incredibly upset. He had spent all of this money. He felt the insurance was worthless, and he was very upset and understandably upset. After some conversation and sort of working through the plans, looking at the benefit guide, we migrated him to a plan that cost more out of his paycheck, but saved him significantly on a benefit cost. The net cost to him was about $5,000 less per year. Now, we wouldn't want sick children to be a common occurrence, but it does happen, but it needs a conversation. And those conversations can be challenging to have. And on the flip side of that, you have a 25 or 30-year-old employee who is really healthy and is on the most expensive plan with the richest benefits and doesn't even get the flu. So they're paying a little bit too much for their coverage. They might be better served on another plan, but they might need a conversation to understand how that works rather than just looking at a benefit guide. Benefit guides, no matter how simple they are incredibly confusing to people. So the verbal and the in-person, even on the phone, always helps.
Right. Great. So let's talk about the third dimension, the brokers. What are your thoughts on how they can help and how they impact good communication?
Well, they have a challenging job. You know, they have many needs to meet, and they're not always the same. You know, they need time and space, just like I do, to review all the data, craft a solution, deliver it, and support the back end. And often they don't get it. And it's a challenging time. So many things are changing every week, sometimes every day things are changing. It can be a lot to keep up. And I know everybody intends to get their renewals done early, and everybody has that intention, and oftentimes those intentions go where intentions go. And so the sort of competing interests are cost-effective solutions for an employer that need to deliver a diverse set of benefits for employees and an ever-changing set of employees. They may include wellness initiatives, financial service products, flexible spending accounts, health savings accounts, the new health maintenance accounts, wellness initiatives like Mindful Meal. And then once you've got all that structured, you need to find a way to communicate that to an employee in an easily understandable and effective way. So that's where I come in. So, and in addition to all that, not only are they supporting these things, but the ACH requirements are adding a significant amount of workflow. Our tracking is expensive to do. 1094 and 1095 prep can be bearish, particularly the first years, but even the second and third, and good providers are never free. So constructing a diverse enrollment with a full suite of products can help support both the revenue needs of the broker, the needs of the employer for cost-effective solutions, and the needs of the employees for solutions that actually help them.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about communicating newer benefits. Right. There's a lot of newer value-added services and non-traditional benefits, especially in the wellness space. How do you communicate that alongside, of course, the more traditional benefits?
It all comes down to how you construct the enrollment. So it used to be you talked about medical, dental, vision, disability insurance, life insurance, and then anything else that you were offering. And by that time, employees were asleep. Everybody was asleep or couldn't wait to get out of the room. So when you explain as a holistic package how everything works together, then an employee can make more thoughtful decisions. For example, I just enrolled a case that had 3 medical options, and the least expensive deductible was $2,500. So we constructed the online platform to take the employee through the medical options. Then we went right into the worksite benefit options, which in this particular case were an accident and critical illness plan chosen by the broker. And the question we asked is, do you want to hear how this can help you with your out-of-pocket expense? Often the answer was yes. We had some further discussion, and sometimes it was no. But at least the employee had the opportunity to hear how it all worked together. Then we went on to talk about flexible spending, health savings account, and then we sort of moved into the traditional vision, dental, life, and disability products. Everybody was satisfied with that, and we accomplished that pretty quickly. I mean, with most employees, we were through those conversations in less than 10 minutes. There's always a few employees that have complex needs or a lot of questions. They do take a little bit longer, but most people are through in about 10 minutes.
Great. So this is a good time for the audience. If you guys have any questions, please use the question or the chat panel and shoot away. So we have one question here. Are there any worksite plans in particular that can help support wellness initiatives already in place?
Yes, there are a couple of things that can help drive wellness initiatives. So most people are aware that worksite benefit plans have wellness benefits built into them. Not all, but most of them do. You can use that to, if you communicate that before you're doing a health fair as part of your health fair communication, you can remind people that when they come for their finger prick, that they can file their wellness benefit. And that's pretty standard across the board. There are a couple of carriers that the employee doesn't need to do anything. The employee needs to show up for their finger prick. The HR staff can provide a list of employees who had their biometrics done, and the carrier will cut wellness benefit checks without any further documentation. The response to that is incredible. I mean, people are pretty happy when they get a check for $100 and they didn't know that they were getting it, or they were expecting it and they didn't have to do anything. And that's one of the tools that you can use to keep people engaged. So, and there are 2 carriers currently that do that.
Right. So actually we are getting close to the time. Are there any things, Allison, that we haven't covered that are important to talk about?
I want to stress timing and change. With the big move towards online enrollment platforms, as much leeway as everybody can have with regard to setting up an enrollment produces much better results. You know, you can turn around an enrollment in a week if you need to, but it can look pretty interesting on the back end and can add a lot of stress. If you have a little more space to build that out, communicate that it's coming, and then let the data be supplied to the appropriate carriers, there's less complaints about cars. I tried to use this, I couldn't use it. Those things all go away. I know that's incredibly challenging. The other thing that I want to remind people of is that change is hard. And to migrate from one kind of system to another can be incredibly stressful and can make every problem you have worse right this minute until you get through it, and then life becomes easier. Your workflow gets straightened out, leveled out more than anything, and problems can be managed a little bit more effectively. Be patient with that. I know it can be bearish, but the results are usually worthwhile.
Right. And so, hey, thank you so much. This was really helpful. So before we wrap up, how can people find out more about your services?
My contact information will be in the recording that is going out, and it's in the slides. And my website is dipaliprofservices.com, and there's a wealth of information there about how to reach me and some of the things that we've done.
Great. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and your time. This was super helpful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and this wraps up our session. If you want to learn more about Allison's services or about Mindful Meal, or have any other questions on what we talked about and things that we didn't cover, shoot me an email. My email address is right there. Or just put a note in the chat box. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks. Bye.